This episode offers psychosocial education designed to inspire and motivate our listeners. The information provided does not constitute a therapeutic relationship nor a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, call 911, go to your nearest emergency room, or for listeners in the United States, text 988 for the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Warning, this episode contains brain food that will lead to improved emotional and social intelligence. Thanks for tuning in to Harvesting Happiness today for a healthy serving of consciously prepared brain food. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen, your host. Since 2010, we've been broadcasting sound ideas for better well-being. Each week, we spotlight diverse thinkers and doers who are contemporary trendsetters and change agents, devoting their lives to creating a better world. I invite you to listen and change how you think about human happiness. Our award-winning content is fresh, optimistic, and purpose-driven media that promotes well-being from the inside out. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining me on today's show, where we will be unmasking procrastination, exploring the roots of putting things off. My guest is Dr. Patricia Zurita Ona. Is known as Dr. Z. She's a psychologist licensed in California. She has authored 6 books, conducted workshops at national and international conferences, runs a boutique coaching and therapy practice that specializes on acceptance and commitment therapy for anxiety-based struggles. A key component to Dr. Z's work centers around how can we get unstuck from worries, fears, anxieties, perfectionism, procrastination, and any other form of fear-based reactions so we can live a more meaningful, fulfilling, and purposeful life. Her book is Acceptance and Commitment Skills for Perfectionism and High Achieving Behaviors. Patricia, I am so happy that we're having another conversation about this because around my household, this is a subject of conversation.
Lisa, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to jump into the topic of procrastination, productivity, and living with purpose.
Yes. So let's just go straight at it. Many people think that procrastinators are lazy, when in fact, that is a complete myth. It has nothing to do with laziness. That's a completely other show topic.
Yeah, completely. I completely agree. A lot of people confuse procrastination with laziness, or they think that procrastination is a matter of time management, or they think that procrastination is a personality trait. The way that we think of procrastination is a pattern of behaviors that the person has learned and they have repeated over time across many, many, many situations. So anyone listening to us who struggles with procrastination, postponing things off, can learn skills to get better at managing this proneness to put things off.
Question, why do we put things off? What is it that triggers it? Is it anxiety? Is it overwhelm? Is it a little of both? Talk a little bit about that. Like we say, oh yeah, I'll get to it later. And then there's no list. So if there's no list for even it to fall off of because there isn't one that exists.
That's true. That's true. That's such a great question. I think in the information era, given the busyness of our lives, given all the infinite numbers and pieces of information we get exposed to daily, of course, we're going to put things off. We all put things off. Now, when we're talking about procrastination, we're talking about people who put things off chronically, repetitively, and it's affecting their relationships, their career, their spiritual life, their health, their relationships, their life with their relatives. And I love your question because also we think of procrastination as something that the person has or doesn't. But reality is that if we look at the why people procrastinate, why some people procrastinate more than others, why some people have a hard time breaking the loop of procrastinating habits, through the lenses of acceptance and commitment therapy, we're more interested in finding what drives these procrastinating behaviors, what's beyond the label of procrastination.
Yes.
And right? So it's a huge difference. Procrastination is just a label.
It's like the symptom. It's the symptom of something else, right? It's the manifestation of something else that's going on that maybe the person doesn't even know.
That's right. That's right. So procrastination will be like the outcome of what we call psychological processes. In my work, I have identified 6 core psychological processes that they start a procrastinating habit and maintain it. So I'm going to briefly mention the 6 of them, and then we can jump into any of them. So
I got my pen.
Oh, you're the best. You're the
to
best.
make my list because it makes me feel safe and in control.
Well, quite often I do the same thing. I have to write things down. It's all good. All good. So one of the core psychological processes behind procrastination is a difficulty accepting and sitting with uncomfortable emotions. It's what we will call a lack of emotional acceptance. When you talk to people and you look at the research of people struggling with procrastination, they describe different types of emotional states they struggle with: anxiety, fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, stress. So they don't have the skills to manage these overwhelming emotions. So that's one psychological process: difficulties with staying with uncomfortable emotions. Another process is that they tend to get consumed by what I call reasons and ruling thoughts. Rules like, I need to feel X to do Y. I need to have all the tools that I need before I start working on this project. I don't feel it today. I don't have that feeling to start working things. Right, I see you laughing. You may have heard this. Those are very common reasons.
I have heard it.
There you go. Yeah. There are reasons why you cannot start the topic or the task. And there are rules about how things are supposed to be for you to start doing something. If there is a variation of any of those rules, you cannot do it. Right? You cannot start the task.
This is great insight. Yep. I'm with you.
So there is that. So when a person has those thoughts, instead of noticing those thoughts and looking at them for what they are, stuff that shows up in our mind, they hold them as absolute truth, right? I don't have this feeling, therefore I shouldn't write today. Or they also have a lot of thoughts about time, right? I have enough time. Oh, the deadline is in 4 weeks, so I have enough time. I will get it quickly. I work better under pressure, so I don't need to do this today.
Yes, there are. And for some people, that is true, that the deadline is actually motivating. I mean, from my reading, because I have been told that. And also, what is the other thing? That sometimes you're waiting for more information, that procrastination is actually appropriate, right?
That is right. So I think I will write things down here.
Yeah.
I will write down this comment about, yes, what we know in terms of research about working better under stress. I read a couple of studies that are very interesting around that. So I'm going to write it down here so we can revisit that. Another process that leads a person to procrastinate is that they experience a lot of self-doubts. Can I do this? Am I good enough? I'm not smart enough. I am not competent enough. They have self-doubts about themselves as human beings, and they also have doubts about their abilities to get things done. So that's another process that lets a person to procrastinate. And then what you have also is that many times in life, there is a stuff that we have to do that seems to be so remote and so disconnected from the things that are truly important to us. Think about in your household, and as I think about my clients, how many times people say, why do I have to write that paper? I'm not going to be a biologist. Why do I have to study that? Why do I have to submit the application? I'm not interested in that. This has nothing to do with what I want to be doing. So the task by itself doesn't seem to be relevant or connected to a person's passions and values. So they procrastinate more. And finally, another process is that a person may engage more in what I call feeling-based decisions. in the moment when I'm thinking about starting the task, my anxiety kicks in. My mind tells me, you don't have to do it right now. You're not feeling it. You have to wait. And then I tell myself, I have time to do this. And then my mind also may say, well, Patricia, I don't even know if you can do it. So in that moment, I feel overwhelmed with my internal experiences, with my feelings, my sensations, my self doubts. I choose to do something that is much more soothing. I'm going to grab the cell phone and scroll on Instagram. I am going to go into YouTube because in that moment when I am watching random videos on YouTube or scroll on Instagram, it's soothing. It feels good. So that's another process that when people are procrastinating, and I'm speaking about chronic forms of procrastination, they're making choices based on emotional avoidance and based on the feeling, I want to feel good right now.
Don't we all? I mean, I think we need to validate that is human nature, right? We're adverse to pain and suffering. And when we pick up the phone and go down the rabbit hole, we're getting, drips of dopamine that make us, feel happy temporarily,
That's true. That's true. It is, everything I'm saying, it's human nature. Humans were not wired to tolerate discomfort I don't have any of my clients I ever have say, I love to be anxious. I am excited about my anxiety, right?
And I love doing taxes. I just can't wait to do my taxes. Right?
There we go. Oh my gosh. Don't get me starting on taxes. Oh my gosh.
See, even Dr. Z.
Of course. I'm a human being, not a perfect being. As I said.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for telling us that. And thank you for validating that we all do this, right? Like we're talking about varying degrees when there are actually negative consequences.
That's right. We all engage in some forms of playing it safe behaviors or avoidant behaviors. We all make choices based on our feelings. That's human. The challenge is if we don't pay attention how often we're making those choices and how they are working in our life with the people we love, in our career, in regard to our health, right? So it is human to avoid, but we want to be careful about the consequences in the long term. That's what is different, right?
And correct me if I'm wrong. A chronic procrastinator does understand that there are negative consequences to the behaviors. It's not that they don't understand that, but they would rather not do the task than confront the consequence at the moment.
That's a great comment, Lisa, and I agree with you. I think that many times we have really pathologized procrastinating behaviors as a form of laziness or personality traits. But no, I think sadly, people they engage in procrastination, they are suffering. They're suffering because they don't have the skills to manage this proneness. So they are aware of the consequences. They want to do better. They want to change their behavior. I genuinely believe that. Every client I have worked with, whether in therapy or in coaching, they genuinely have felt the consequences of the choices they have made, and they want to change the procrastinating habits. But what happens is that when they're approaching a task or a difficult conversation, they don't have the skills to manage their thoughts, the emotions, or the skills to make decisions and manage their time or make other choices. So I think of this as a matter of skills deficits. Right? Because of that, people can learn the skills because they genuinely want to change their behavior. No one likes to feel bad about themselves or doubt themselves. No one likes to be trapped in a loop of procrastinating behaviors. There is a lot of shame and guilt that shows up. There's a lot of embarrassment. There's a lot of social isolation, a lot of distress that comes with procrastination. So I agree with you. People genuinely want to make a difference. It just happens that they don't have the skills.
Well, let's take a break. And when we come back, I would love to talk with you about ways that we can help a procrastinator move the needle a quarter of an inch. Because I think to ask somebody to change very drastically, we all have difficulty with change, right? It's not something that's easy for us to manage. And so to ask somebody to make like a 180-degree shift is a lot. Let's put a pin in that and come back. To learn more about the great Dr. Patricia Zurita Ona, please go to thisisdrz.com, on Twitter or X at DrZ_behaviorist, and on Instagram at Dr.Z.passionate behaviorist. We're talking about acceptance and commitment skills for perfectionism and high achieving behaviors. Let's take that pause. Harvesting Happiness is rooted in science. Our work facilitates applied positive psychology practices through media and consulting. We're committed to sound ideas for better well-being, leading to increased life satisfaction and a better world for everyone. We're not into pseudoscience or quick fixes. We're focused on common sense backed by rigorous research. Healthy critical thinking is the foundation for our discussions. We encourage you to challenge preconceptions and explore ideas with a curiously discerning mind. Collaboration with our guests is united by an inclusive vision to boost resilience, critical thinking, communication, and problem solving through civilized discourse and pleasurable relational engagement for everyone. Each day, we have the intellectual freedom to be happy or the liberty to be miserable, regardless of external circumstances. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please seek support because good psychological health is vital to the achievement of a healthy and satisfying life. Visit harvestinghappiness.com for psychosocial and educational services that boost emotional and social intelligence. And we're back, continuing the conversation with my guest today, Dr. Patricia Zurita Ona. We are unmasking procrastination, exploring the roots of putting things off. Let's get back to it. So, Patricia, let's talk a little bit about the counterintuitiveness to the procrastination loop.
I think, you raised this point in our mini break, and I think it's a very important one. One of the things that I encounter in my work is that every single person I work with was dealing with incredible amounts of shame and guilt and embarrassment and all types of, very, very overwhelming emotions, but shame in particular because of where procrastination has taken them, the choices they have made in the past because of procrastinating habits. And to me, I have found extremely helpful, and my clients have appreciated this as well, to learn self-compassion skills and self-forgiveness. I think it's very easy when we think about procrastination to think about productivity apps, time hacks, time management. But before going there, I think it's very important to teach skills to manage these uncomfortable internal experiences. So self-compassion is a very different response than spending hours criticizing yourself or attacking yourself. And it doesn't mean that the person is going to be off the hook. It doesn't mean that you are not being accountable for the choices you have made. It just simply means that you're choosing to respond with kindness to yourself when you are struggling because of choices you made in the past, because of consequences you have experienced due to these procrastinating habits. So that response of self-compassion, kindness, and gentleness feels very counterintuitive for people because many times my clients are engaging in self-attacking behaviors. It's not just self-criticism. They're spending hours and hours putting themselves down. So I think what I encourage people listening to us is to keep in mind that if you look at how it works for you to be hours and hours in your head criticizing yourself, it doesn't take you towards living the life you want to live, or it doesn't take you to be the person you want to be. There is self-punishment involved with self-criticism.
Yeah.
So one way to manage this experience differently is practicing self-forgiveness as a choice to forgive yourself for choices or decisions you have made in the past, and to practice to respond with kindness to yourself when you are struggling. So that will be, I think, the first step before talking about other types of skills, right? And I know that when I present this to my clients, it does feel counterintuitive, just exactly as you say, Lisa, because I think when a person has a struggle with a repetitive pattern of procrastinating behaviors, they experience large amounts of shame, as if something is completely wrong with them. And that shame comes with self-attack, with self-punishment. So my invitation is to really slow down and make room for the pain that you are experiencing when the shame comes and respond to it with kindness. We cannot be self-compassionate with ourselves unless we slow down to face our own pain. Going into self-criticism is another way to look at this, is another form of avoidance, because when I'm attacking myself, I am not slowing down to say, that hurts, right?
Yeah.
So self-compassion again requires that we slow down and respond, notice our pain, and respond to it with kindness, with tenderness, and with gentleness, which feels very counterintuitive for sure.
Yes, it does. And I see how it works. I mean, I understand that the process of leaning in and being able to view ourselves as separate from the behavior, right? The essence of who we are is not that behavior, any behavior, actually.
True, true. The other thing that we have found with self-compassion, and Paul Gilbert, the developer of compassion-focused therapy, he describes this in detail in any of his books. When a person is engaging in self-attack, self-criticism, or self-punishment, their whole system is on edge, right? It's on edge. It's very hard for any human being to respond flexibly or skillfully to the world in front of you when your whole body is on edge. Self-compassion helps the nervous system to slow down, so then we can make choices that are consistent with our values and how we want to be. So also that's something that feels very counterintuitive for people, right? Because sometimes feeling on edge is what they are used to. It's much more familiar, right? But their lives will be better, and our lives are better when we are in a calm place, when our nervous system is not overly excited.
Well, we perform better. I mean, we are able to operate better in the world when the nervous system is calm. We make better decisions, right? We're not as reactive.
That is true. That is one of the I think one of the comments that we have in the first part of the conversation. There is another belief that sometimes we perform better under stress because we have a rush of adrenaline. So I have looked at different types of research, one in sports psychology and the other one in educational psychology. And because it's very interesting, right? It's very interesting. And current findings are suggesting that if you are performing an endurance sport, if you are doing kickboxing, if you are doing wrestling, you need to have high levels of adrenaline. Actually, that is going to help you to perform, right? And it's in sports psychologists, they have talked over the years about the zone of optimal functioning, which basically means, the levels of stress you need to have, right? If you're playing tennis or you're playing golf, they are not endurance sports. So you need to have low levels of stress so you can perform better, right? So that's in the sports. When we think about learning, we have found that if we have high levels of distress, sometimes we're going to make good enough choices, but they are not necessarily our best choices or our best performance. We can get away with, just doing things last minute at times, but we will perform much better for cognitive tasks when we don't have the time pressure or the edginess. So I think the stress hypothesis varies from task and from person to person, of course.
So, Patricia, how would we begin the process of compassionate self-forgiveness? If that is the first step to helping somebody who procrastinates to shift a little bit, how do you introduce this concept when they might just eye roll you? Like, what do you mean? What does that have to do with getting it done?
That's true. That's true. That's true. So to make self-compassion practices much more accessible for the audience, I will invite them to consider perhaps two broad categories. And this is just for the purpose of this conversation, right?
Where we're not practicing therapy or
that's right.
This is not a therapeutic relationship.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
Disclaimer.
That is right. Because it's going to look so different in a coaching or therapy session, right? But we'll invite a person to grab a piece of paper and a pen and imagine that they're taking care of a task or a project they have been avoiding, whether that's completing taxes, writing a paper, having a difficult conversation with someone. And as they're imagining completing the task, they're visualizing that image with as many details as possible. Check what shows up in their mind and write down in a piece of paper all those thoughts one by one. Write them down. You can also check what's showing up in my body. You can do a brief scan from your head to the bottom and notice any sensation and see if there is any feeling associated with it. So that would be that one tiny exercise. And what happens is that if people do this exercise, they will notice a lot of rules. I cannot do this task because of this. I need to have this because of this. They will notice self-doubts about their competence. Can I do it? Do I know how to do it? Will I fail? They also may notice some self-criticizing thoughts. I'm not smart enough. I will never make it. I'm a loser. So the first task will be that. That will be a tiny exercise to look at all the stuff that shows up when imagining completing a task. And then they can check for themselves. Are those thoughts new or old? Quite likely they're old thoughts. They're repetitive thoughts because they have been coming into their mind so many times. And then if they're willing to try, I will invite them to visualize their compassionate self. If there is a part of it that is kind and gentle and tender, how does it look? How does it sound? What type of gestures does this compassionate self make? And what type of coaching will the compassionate self give you in that moment? So that will be a brief exercise, right? I think I invite people to give it a try and see how it goes. I know, and we have talked about Lisa, then when we talk about self-compassion, a lot of people think that it's a bunch of baloney.
Yeah, I roll.
We get the eye rolls, right? And I just want to clarify that practicing self-compassion is not about letting yourself off the hook or not being accountable. It's the opposite. It's breaking the loop of self-criticism, self-punishment, and self-attacking in the service of building a life you love. So learning to make room for that and respond to that criticizing voice that shows up in our mind with kindness is a big step, not just a step, it's a huge step.
Yes, it's very kind, right? What you're describing is kind, it's gentle, and it might be foreign to the person who is the procrastinator, who is generally so self-critical and able to perform very well in many areas of their lives, right? They've got this corner that is annexed off that it's just very hard. It's like a mountain.
That's right. That is right. That there is a lot of that. And I think, along those lines, the other skill that I like to talk about, I call it compassionate accountability. I have found in my work that it's extremely, extremely important to teach my clients, and people can practice this, to take ownership of the choices they have made with compassion and have the willingness to do something different the next time. So compassion accountability is really about acknowledging I was the one that chose not to write that paper, or to not submit this application, or to not talk about this, or to not submit my forms for taxes. Because of all types of things, right?
I mean, I'm giggling because it's like it's complaining about one's boss, right? That we are the CEO of ourselves, and then you want to complain about the boss.
That's right. That is right. Well, it's very interesting, right? Because and we chat a little bit about this, but there's a lot of research that has looked at how we manage our pain. And one of the areas, especially in social psychology and in conflict management, has found the same findings over the years. When we are in pain, we need to find a source of our pain. Sometimes we find a source of our pain on the outside world. The world has failed me. She has done this to me. He told me this. They're not doing their part. Or we find the source of our pain within ourselves. Oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? I should have done this. Well, how come I didn't think about it? So, when we're working with procrastinating behaviors, people sometimes have a mixture of these responses. They didn't tell me the deadline. They didn't send me the email. They could have done this, right? There's a little bit of that.
Yeah.
This what I call reasons. They're reason thoughts. And there is also this internal, like, I am a loser. I won't ever make it. I'm going to fail anyway, right? So there is both responses, the internal and external. And that's why compassion and accountability means taking the courage of taking ownership of the choices you make because you got hooked on your thoughts, on your feelings and your sensations, and have the courage to do differently the next time. So I think that is very, very important, right? Which is really hard. It's really, really hard.
Yeah. And it's hard to also ask for help. Somebody who's caught in this loop also might be able to outsource some of the labor needed to accomplish some of the tasks and chooses not to hold on to control.
That's right. That is right. You see, I haven't read much about it, but I think over the years, I am convinced that humility in life, it's an incredible source of growth for all of us if we are humble enough to learn from our mistakes, to learn from others, to ask for help, to say I don't know. I think our relationships can improve so much, and the relationship with ourselves too.
Yeah.
I think that makes a huge difference, right? When I'm humble enough to say I'm stuck, can you give me a hand? When I call my friend and say I don't know what to do now, I'm at lost here.
It's big work. It's to confront this habit, and it's a habit, right? It's not a personality. It's a habit.
Right. It is a habit. It is a habit. Yeah, yeah. It's one of the things I think that it is hard. It's hard to be human. It's hard to be human.
It is. It's hard to be human. And we should leave it at that because we're out of time. And I think validating and normalizing that feels good. Like that this is just one of many kinds of behaviors that we do to manage in this world, to get by, to get along. And what you're a champion for is doing more than that, right? It's to thrive and flourish.
That's right. That's right. That is a beautiful point. Yeah, I agree with that.
To learn more, please visit thisisdrz.com. You can find Dr. Z on X at Dr. Z_behaviorist and on Instagram at Dr. Z passionate behaviorist. We're talking about Dr. Patricia Zurita Ona's book, Acceptance and Commitment Skills for Perfectionism and High Achieving Behaviors. As always, it is such a pleasure to get to spend time with you, and to laugh with you.
Lisa, I am the one that love our conversations, love the work you're doing, and I really appreciate how you're putting different types of resources for people out there. So tons of appreciation, and thank you again for having me.
Always. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today on Harvesting Happiness. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen on behalf of my guest, Dr. Patricia Zurita Ona, wishing you kind thoughts, kinder words, and the kindest of actions. Until next time, remember, happiness is an inside job. Happiness is your inside job. Please go out and rock your day and remember to be kind to one another. Want to explore more sound ideas for better well-being? Check out our new bonus edition content at More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness on Substack and Medium. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with and follow us on most social media channels. To learn more about lifestyle management and mental fitness consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. Harvesting Happiness and More Mental Fitness are produced by Lisa Cypers Kamen, Andrea Mengeli, Robin Boyd, Andrea Daly, and the excellent team at Podfly Productions, including Eric Begay, Kimberly Beck, and Alec Guess, in collaboration with TogiNet Radio, KBUU, RadioMalibu.net, and is available on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange.